a look at the trend. Todd Elmer, who's the head of G10 FX strategy for Asia Pacific ex-Japan at Citigroup, joins us this morning. Todd, what about this dollar strength? I mean, how long can it last for, given that it looks like QE3 has been taking off, at least for now?
Well, I think you're right to finger the minutes as the driver of dollar strength overnight, but I really have to question whether or not the market overreacted to that release. Ultimately, I don't think it should have been a surprise that there's a range of views among members of the FOMC. And I think the more recent information is the dovishness that we heard from Chairman Bernanke. So I do question the extent to which U.S. yields can continue to rise. And I do question whether or not we'll see some pushback from the doves on the FOMC against a further rise in yields. I think that will limit the scope for sustained dollar appreciation.
Okay, that's interesting because we have hawkishness as well amongst other Fed members besides Chairman Ben Bernanke. So what's your bet, Todd? I mean, what is the U.S. going to do with stimulus going forward as we have Operation Twist ending in June? What about QE3?
Well, I think that there remains the potential for QE3 if the economy deteriorates. I think it was clear from the comments from Chairman Bernanke that the center of gravity of Fed thinking is that the recovery, is not yet at the level they would like to see. But I think that will keep alive the possibility of additional easing. So while it may not be the base case that we see QE3, I do think policy is going to remain accommodative, and I think that liquidity that the accommodative policy pumps into the market tends to argue for a weaker dollar over time.
Okay, so you see a dollar strength being capped. Okay, so what's going to be the best performer then against the U.S. dollar going forward?
Well, I think tactically that it's probably best to adopt a wait-and-see approach for the time being. But as we see potentially, Fed dovishness reassert itself, as we see continued kind of middling economic numbers out of the U.S., as some of the seasonal strength begins to work its way out of the data, we'd expect the smaller, more dynamic economies. We'd expect those currencies to be the outperformers. So we still very much like the Asian currencies, and in particular, we like the Australian dollar.
Okay, I wanted to highlight the Australian dollar because take a look at the Aussie today. We're looking at, we're going to break through 103. That's what it looks like at this point. And why not, considering we had, of course, the RBA holding on interest rates yesterday, and all the indications are we're going to get an interest rate cut at some point. And some say even at these levels, I mean, the Aussie is really way too strong given the fundamentals against the U.S. dollar.
Well, it's another case where I don't think that was a big surprise to the market that the RBA signaled a probable cut at its next meeting. That was fully priced in to money markets, and we have a series of cuts priced in thereafter. So I really don't see much further downside for Aussie on that factor, and I don't think that the positioning is conducive to a sustained pullback, because I think that we are going to see very heavy buying on any further dip from the corporate sector, as well as potentially from sovereigns.
Okay, fine. Then what about the yen? Where are we going with the yen? Are we going to see this weakening trend continue?
Well, the weaker trade in the yen is something the market's been waiting for several years now, so we've really jumped on it with gusto. And when we look at our positioning indicators on the yen, we're starting to get indication that some of those shorts are stretched, both among long-term investors as well as shorter-term, faster money. So I think that presents a barrier to an immediate sell-off in the yen. And if we don't see a continued pickup in U.S. yields, I think that's going to rob some of the momentum from that trade.
Okay, so what's your yen forecast? Any specifics, Todd?
Well, we are a bit skeptical on the sell-off in the yen, so I'd say consolidation around current levels is most likely.
Okay, Todd, good seeing you this morning. Thanks for your time. Todd Elmer, their head of G10 FX strategy at Asia ex-Japan and Citigroup.